Hello and welcome to the final episode of Roaring Back the Years. Tom Ken's giving you your programme about, today's episode is going to be about race track configurations. So we'll be talking about the most famous of changes, particularly that's inspired by what happened at the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994. We'll be looking at other circuits that were also tweaked. We'll be mentioning also and maybe going into detail about the Hockenheim and Nürburgring circuits changing. And we'll perhaps talk about the Formula E track layouts that have changed over the years for safety reasons. So we begin with what happened at the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994 at the Imola circuit, where we had 2 fatalities that weekend due to high-speed accidents. The first one was during Saturday's qualifying session that claimed the life of Roland Ratzenberger, where he, I think 190 miles an hour, he had gone offline and into the barrier on the run-up to the Tosa hairpin. The following day, on the Sunday, during the race on the 7th lap, Ayrton Senna, who was in the lead, just ahead of Michael Schumacher, he had what looked like a suspension issue, or a car problem anyway, rather than driver error. He had gone off on the exit of Tamburello corner, and the impact claimed the life of the 3-time world champion that day, which, for me, is probably the most sad day for motorsport, the saddest weekend in motorsport history. And that meant changes for the following races. Not necessarily in Monaco, because there's like loads of slow speed corners down there anyway, and there's not much that they can do to change the circuit layout, given it's a street track. But they did make changes for the next 2 in Spain and in Canada. Now, at the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, a new chicane was put in, just basically tyre stacks, to form a slower chicane before that fast chicane, right and left, that is. Now, in terms of which corner I mean, the old runoff area at the Circuit de Catalunya, on the exit of turn 9, that was used before they used the straight that Formula 1 drivers are using now. So there was a tyre stack chicane before what was turns 10 and 11, and before that, fast right and left-hander. In Montreal, a chicane was also fitted in, a slow-speed chicane was put in on the exit of that hairpin, beginning the final sector. And that was put in because at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, there's like a right, left and a right-hander, which was very much high speed and potentially dangerous as well. So they had to put a chicane in there to stop drivers from having any sort of high-speed accidents, whether or not they're trying to overtake another car or something, and to stop any horrific accidents happening or having a repeat of what happened in Imola earlier that season in 1994. And another track that also tweaked was Spa. Now, unbelievably, Eau Rouge that had a chicane put in there temporarily for that season before they took it back off again. Not 100% sure why they took it back off, but I think that was just what I think is maybe like a panic move, because 94 was such a turbulent year in the Formula 1 paddock, and they had to take precautionary measures. But I think after that race in 94, they reverted back to the sort of high-speed section of Eau Rouge, which has still claimed accidents over the years, but not to the level of where what happened in 94. Although we did have the accident of Antoine Hubert in Formula 2 last year, but that was on the exit of Raidillon, not the entry of the complex where Eau Rouge is. So that was that in 1994. Now, in 95, the Barcelona track had that straight put in that we have today. That's still there. And there's been a few other tweaks to the circuit as well. In 2004, they replaced that curved left-hander on the exit of where where turn 10 is, to form like a sharper left-hander to aid more overtaking. In 2007, another chicane was put in there, rather than having the right-hander that leads to the last right-hander, the penultimate corner, then the last corner. A chicane has been put in between there to help improve safety and provide more overtaking opportunities. And the Circuit de Catalunya has not changed since then. In Canada, they had put in the straight, the long straight before the last chicane, where what is known as the race of what's it called? The one that was named after the race in '99. Wall of Champions. That was the one it was after. But yeah, there was a straight before that chicane being put in, and they got rid of that slow chicane as well, so that drivers don't have to go through that right, left, and right-hander before the last chicane before the pit straight. That was put in 1996. So that's good news to see that they've made the changes there. Now, there was other circuits like Hockenheim. I mean, Hockenheim has had its changes, particularly after what happened in 1982, where one of those fast chicanes, I think it was the chicane where the S-curve was, claimed the life of Patrick Depailler. I think it was 1982. I can't remember. It might have been a little bit sooner than that. But anyway, changes were made to that circuit to have slower chicanes put in there for safety reasons. As much as drivers did enjoy racing around that particular layout, changes were put in 2002 to have a shorter circuit and have more overtaking opportunities put in place, including that hairpin, that sharp hairpin. I think it's like turn 6, I think it's called. And another track that had changes as well was the Nürburgring. Now, the first part of the circuit, the first sector of it, used to be like a right and a left-hander, but there's been so many accidents happening there over the years. In '97, where Ralf Schumacher's left rear hit Michael Schumacher's tyre that nearly hit his dashboard and his steering wheel, or even his hand, when he went up in the air. 1999 was another one where Alex Wurz had to take evasive action, avoiding Damon Hill's ailing Jordan, only to take out Pedro Diniz in the process and seeing the Sauber upside down as a result. Changes were put in 2002 to have a more a sharper right-hander. It's like a hairpin, pretty much, and then a series of corners following that before they resume the older parts of the circuit. Now, what's interesting actually is at Paul Ricard, because Paul Ricard has a grand total of 167 possible configurations that they could use, which is interesting because some fans don't necessarily like the circuit, and if they wanted to change it or take the chicane off, like the Mistral chicane or something, then they could do that if they wanted to and try something else. But I think that's just asking for too much, really. Now, another issue is with Formula E track layouts. Now, as you well know, the series is still young. It's been going on for 5.5 years now, nearly 6. And what we had last season, 2018-19 that is, a number of races had been red flagged because of gridlocks happening at chicanes. We had one in Rome, we had one in Hong Kong, we had an accident in Mexico City that saw Nelson Piquet go over the top of Jean-Eric Vergne that brought out the red flag. I think there was another one as well in Bern in Switzerland. I think it was Bern. Yeah, it was Bern in Switzerland. And measures have been taken place to ensure that those kind of events don't happen again. Now, already this season in Santiago, they've already changed the layout to their circuit to help provide more overtaking. They've changed where the start-finish straight is. So yeah, they changed where the start-finish straight is there. In Mexico City, more recently, they had to change the chicanes. They've added a new part of the racetrack as well, actually, so that the circuit's not too short. I think that's the reason why. I think they wanted to add something in to replace the chicanes, and they got rid of those. I think the chicanes around the early part of the lap, and most definitely the one just before the start-finish straight there. So that's that there. And finally, with the Sandfort bankings that's been put in place to help improve the spectacle of the racetrack. How that will do for its first Formula 1 race for 35 years, I'm not too sure, but it looks exciting to watch. And they've even said it's even more steeper, the banking there, than what Indianapolis has. So that's something to look out for this year, actually. Now, of course, in the 50s and the 60s, there's obviously minor changes that they'll have done to Formula 1 circuits. But there wasn't really sort of particular regulations being put in place in terms of having chicanes in there, because there was a lot more fatalities back then, as you well know, but nothing much had been done to improve safety up until, let's say, like the 80s or the 90s. Now, just to summarise, the San Marino Grand Prix 94, where it claimed Ratzenberger and Senna, changes have been put in place to the circuit the following season, actually, in 95, because they put a chicane where Tamburello is and another chicane just before the Tosa hairpin. They did take off two of the chicanes that were already there. I think it's at Acromurali and the one just after Ravazza, where Rubens Barrichello had that horrific accident that saw him on the sidelines for the rest of the weekend of 1994. Now, other circuits like the Circuit de Catalunya, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, you've got Spa as well with the Eau Rouge corner having a chicane put in there temporarily. I've seen ones like in Hockenheim in Nürburgring being changed. The number of configurations that Paul Ricard has, so there's particular parts of the racetrack which sees a lot of accidents. And to be honest, we haven't really seen that many bad accidents at the Paul Ricard circuit, but there's always different configurations that they can choose from if they needed to. And obviously with Formula E, there's obviously different track layouts that they've used. They're taking off some of the chicanes. And that's pretty much all you need to know really about racetrack configurations. So I'll leave that there. Thank you for listening and listening to the whole series of Roaring Back the Years. If you haven't listened to any of the other episodes, do feel free to listen to them, as they are now currently on Spreaker. Do stay tuned to Downforce Radio as well, as I'll be beginning my new series, my new review and preview series for Formula 2 and Formula 3. There'll be an announcement as to when they'll be published and when they'll be, well, when the races will be happening, etc. So just running through who's driving where, which teams they're driving for, the calendar as well, and everything you need to know before the first weekend of the season in Bahrain for F2 and F3. So thank you for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Roaring Back the Years, Episode 10, Race Circuit Configurations. Presented by Tom Cairns. Produced by Florian Schmeis. This has been a high-speed Autobahn production for Downforce Radio, the nation's motorsport station. Thank you for joining us on our journey when we were roaring back the years. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on Downforce Radio, the nation's motorsport station.